I'm a bus driver in a small town in England, and I think I've just picked up a passenger's soul on my bus. This happened 2 nights ago. I've worked with this bus company for 8.5 years. I've driven the same route for 3 years. Over this time, I've gotten regulars that I get to know, as I see them multiple times a day, some young and some old, taking them to work or taking them to shops and bingo. I often jump out to help my older passengers on with shopping and whatnot. I've had a passenger that I've taken for the full 3 years I've done this route. Let's call her Jane. Jane is an elderly lady who suffers from dementia. She was well functioning for the last 2.5 years. Sometimes a little confused, but I was always patient and helped her however she needed. I used to pick her up from the bus stop right outside her house, literally a 10-second walk from her door to the bus stop. Every day, I'd take her from her house to the local shopping center where she played bingo with friends. Either way, her dementia worsened the last 6 months after an incident on my bus where she got very confused and distressed. I had to stop my bus and try to settle her down. Someone on the bus knew her son, who thankfully worked close by and came over to help. I told my manager, who understood and approved for my passengers to get off my bus and get on the one just behind so I could stay with Jane. Her son came and calmed her down, got her home, and thanked me for the help. We spoke about Jane, and I explained how we had become friendly the last few years I'd been on the route. I explained she hadn't freaked out like that before. He said he knew, and she spoke fondly of me, and that her dementia had worsened, causing her to have bad spells. He took my number and said he would get in touch to arrange a gift for looking after Jane. I insisted it was okay, and I didn't want a gift, but he insisted. He took my number and his mother and left the bus. I never saw Jane again after that day, but I did see the son at the shops. He explained Jane had gotten worse and unfortunately wasn't safe to leave the house. I thanked him for letting me know and wished her the best, and asked to be kept up to date with her condition as we had become friends over the years. This leads to last night. I'd been covering the late night shifts all week when around 11:30 p.m. I was driving by Jane's house. The bus was completely empty, but as I approached the stop, I thought of Jane as I normally do. For some reason, however, I had an urge to stop at the bus stop outside of her house, as if someone was waiting to board. I could see there wasn't anyone waiting, but the urge was so strong, I did. I opened the doors and waited for a second. A cold rush of air entered the bus, and I closed the doors and drove on. I could feel a presence on the bus, and about 5 minutes later, or 6 stops, I felt someone next to my cab on the bus, like someone was waiting to get off. I stopped again and opened the doors. I felt the presence leave, and I again continued on, a bit confused. I fully believe in the paranormal, so when I got a call this morning from Jane's son to tell me she passed away 2 nights ago in her home around 11 p.m., I broke down. I had forgotten about the strange feeling I had that night with a presence on my bus until the funeral. I took the day off and attended the funeral for Jane before going back to the son's house for the wake. The son's house was 30 seconds from the stop that I had let the presence off at. I don't know if this is crazy, if I'm just being stupid, but I picked up a presence from right outside Jane's house 30 minutes after she passed and dropped it off at her son's house. Could I have taken Jane's soul on a final trip to see her son before she passed onto whatever is beyond? I really want to believe I did. I have comfort in the idea I drove her one last time to see her son. Does anyone else have an experience like this? Thank you. I live on a 13-acre property in an area of my state where the suburbs turn to rural farmland. My parents live in the main house near our road, while my fiancé and I converted one of the barns on the back half of the property into our house. Our house and another barn are set in a pretty wide clearing, pasture, but beyond that, we're surrounded by woods on 3 sides. All of this to say, we didn't get many visitors out here. From the time we moved into the house almost a year ago, there had been some occasions where I'd get this inexplicable feeling of terror while outside at night. I've lived in the woods my whole life, including in places far more remote than here, but I never had this feeling. The woods are home, and every other place I've lived, they felt like my woods, but not here. I've repeatedly had the feeling that I'm trespassing on someone else's land, someone who is not happy to have me here. The other night, I took my dog out for his last walk. It was around 11 p.m., so it was pitch black outside with the ring of light cast by floodlights on the side of the house. As I was walking towards the edge of the tree line, where my pup likes to do his business, I heard a sound like someone imitating the hoot of an owl coming from the direction of the other barn, about 30 yards to our right. I was so certain that it was a human making the noise that I called out, "Ha ha, very funny, Dad." I assumed it was my father closing up the barn for the night, and he was taking the opportunity to try to spook me. No one called back. It was at this point that my dog lifted his head from sniffing all over and froze, staring in the direction of the barn. His hair stood up along his spine, and he started to give a low, menacing growl. Now, this dog is obsessed with all people and animals. Everyone's a friend waiting to be made. I've never seen him act aggressively towards anything, even other dogs that have tried to fight him. My dad, especially, is his favorite person on the planet, so there was no way he would have started growling at him. It was my turn for all the hair on my neck to stand up, as a cold wave of fear hit me like a brick. My dog had stopped right at the edge of where the light met the darkness of the woods. Normally, the light gradually dissipated into the trees, still providing enough visibility to see the outline of the trees and shrubs, but this time it ended with a solid wall of black. Suddenly, I heard the same fake owl sound from only a few feet away, just on the other side of the darkness. My dog jumped and immediately started barking, putting himself between me and the sound. He's only a little guy, so I darted forward, scooped him up, and took off running towards the house. Behind me, I heard the sound again, but this time it had a strange warble to it, almost like laughter. The next morning, when I went out to check on the barn, I found the doors had been partially broken off the side and were swung past each other in the wrong direction, like someone had tried to force them open the wrong way. There were no signs of footprints in the sawdust or dirt, or any other signs of an intruder. I have no idea what was out there that night, but suffice to say, my dog and I stay well within the floodlights when we go out after dark now. In 2012, I moved into a small duplex with my girlfriend. She had been living in the upstairs of this duplex for about 6 months prior to me moving in with her. The upstairs was a very small one-bedroom apartment, and the downstairs was gutted to the frame, except for the back room, which was a finished laundry room. Our landlord was nice enough to let us use it to do our laundry. Before completely moving into the upstairs apartment with her, I had stayed the night there with her maybe a dozen times or so. She had a small, twin-sized bed, which made it pretty awkward for us to both sleep on it together, but we did anyway. It was either the second or third time I was staying the night with her. I noticed the bed would be gently shaking, as if someone was gently pushing on the mattress, while we were trying to fall asleep. I asked her if she noticed it, and she replied that she did. I kind of just brushed it off as my heartbeat making the bed vibrate, and then went to sleep. So about a month or so later, I end up moving in with her. We switch out her twin-size bed for my full-size bed, along with my coffee table, couch, and TV for the living room. Even after bringing my new bed in there, we still would feel the bed shake every now and then. So after moving in, I start to notice more weird things happening after a few weeks. There were 3 different times we were downstairs doing laundry, and we heard footsteps going up each individual step into our apartment. The stairway leading upstairs was directly in the middle of the house, and you could see the stairs as the walls were gutted downstairs. She worked a morning shift job and was usually in bed by 11 p.m. I worked second shift and would stay up until 3 or 4 a.m. Many times at night, I'd be sitting in our living room, watching TV or playing video games, and out of nowhere, I would get an uneasy feeling as if I was being watched. I would get goosebumps all over my body, and all the hairs on my neck would stand up. The feeling would last maybe 5 minutes, and as quickly as the feeling came on, it's as quick as it would go away. This would happen at least 2 to 3 times every week. After living with her for about 6 months, things gradually seemed to happen more. We would hear footsteps more often. I would feel like I was being watched more often. The bed would gently shake, literally every night, just minutes after lying down in it. I was always skeptical about the paranormal, and I always tried to come up with a rational explanation for what we were experiencing. Then came the night that absolutely shook me to my core and made me a believer. It was about 10 p.m., and she had just left to go out with some friends about 5 minutes prior. I'm sitting in the living room, scrolling through Facebook, and the TV is off. It's dead silent throughout the upstairs. I hear the bottom door open and shut, and then I hear someone walking up the stairs to our apartment. I thought it was her coming back because she may have forgotten her wallet or phone or something. At the top of the stairs is another door that opens directly into our apartment. On the outside of the door was a Christmas ornament hanging on the door that we never took down, and every time the door opened, it would sway against the door and make a noise. So I hear footsteps come all the way up to the door. I hear the doorknob turn, and I hear the ornament start swaying against the door, as if someone had just entered the apartment. I walk around the corner to greet her at the door, and there is absolutely nobody there. The door was shut. I looked into the bedroom and bathroom, and there's nobody. So I open the door and look downstairs, and there's absolutely no one. I spent the next 30 minutes or so in complete disbelief of what I had just experienced. I tried to come up with a rational explanation, but I just couldn't. And then I put all the pieces together and decided that paranormal activities are a real thing and that this house has some type of activity going on. So she gets back home around 2 a.m. and I tell her what happened and ask her what the hell is going on here. She comes clean and tells me about a bunch of things she's experienced living there by herself before I moved in. She said that she would shower with the shower curtain completely open and would just put towels down on the floor so it didn't get wet, because if she showered with the curtain closed, she felt like someone was standing right outside the shower every time. She said she felt like she wasn't alone in the house plenty of times, had the same feelings of being watched, and would feel the bed shake at night as well. She didn't want to bring any of it up to me before moving in because she didn't know how I would respond. We end up moving out about 6 months later because she became pregnant and we needed a bigger place to stay. Fast forward to 2 years later, and one of my friend's sisters moves into the same apartment. I had never told my friends about any of the experiences that I had there. I was over visiting them about a month after she moved in, and I told her that I had lived there about 2 years ago. She proceeds to ask me if I ever experienced anything while living there. I smirk a little and ask her, "Do you feel the bed shake at night?" I'll never forget the look on her face as she says, "Yes, oh my God." We proceeded to talk about the different things we had both experienced, and she goes on to tell me that her 3-year-old son would randomly be talking to someone that isn't there, and they say it's a little girl. She also told me that she would get the feeling of being watched quite often as well. I've lived in almost 10 different apartments and houses in the last 15 years, and I've never experienced anything like that in any of them, except for that one duplex. It 100% made me a believer. Hi, lovely friends. Before the video ends, I just wanted to thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Please like and comment if you enjoyed. It really helps me. I hope that you're doing well. I appreciate you. Please stay safe and sweet dreams.